The last thing we're going to do in section 5-6, which is actually the last thing we're going to do in chapter 5, we're almost finished with chapter 5, is look at solving a matrix equation. Okay? So if you're given a matrix equation, AX equaling B, you can actually solve for matrix X by using this notation, the inverse of matrix A times B. And it must be in that order. So what actually is happening is this. If you are given this matrix equation, what you're allowed to do is multiply both sides by the inverse of matrix A. But note where I'm positioning this, in front of both of these expressions. Order is important. Okay, now on the left, A inverse times A is the identity matrix. That's the first thing we talked about in section 5-6. Okay, and then what else do we know about the identity matrix times any other matrix? Well, I times X is just going to be X. And so that's really how we end up with this equation. So again, guys, directions are going to be important here. Let's look at our final example, chapter number 5. Here we go. Example 6. Solve the system by using a matrix inverse. Directions are critical here. Got to be able to follow them. Okay, so what that means is you're going to create this matrix equation, and then from this, you're going to be able to yield what? The result of matrix X must be the same as the inverse of matrix A. There's your inverse times matrix B. Okay? So let's go ahead and rewrite this system of linear equations as a matrix equation. And we did one of these in the previous section, but now we're actually going to be solving it. So let's rock and roll. First thing, come up with your matrix of coefficients. That would look like this. These values are coming from your coefficients of your variable terms, okay, of your variables X and Y. All right, so this is matrix A. We're going to be multiplying this by matrix X. Matrix X is actually what we're solving for, okay? This matrix represents your unknowns, in this case your variables X and Y. Then we're going to set this equal to what? Our column of constants. In this case, the two numerical values that these two expressions are set equal to, 15 and 36. This is the same as matrix B. All right? So what I'm going to do is understand, again, I'm trying to come up with this, okay? Which means I have to determine the inverse of matrix A. All right? So that's what I'm going to find right now. I'm going to go ahead and find the inverse of matrix A, okay? So let's review how to do this using the determinant. All right? So it's going to be 1 over what? Remember this? 1 over 2 times negative 6. Loop back around now. 2 times negative 6 minus negative 5 times 3. All right? We've talked about this already 3 times before. And then what do we have to do? We have to interchange these values. So we interchange 2 and negative 6. Put the negative 6 here and the deuce here. And then we make these two values the opposite. All right, so this becomes a negative 3. This becomes a positive 5. Okay, so A inverse then is going to be equal to what? Well, let's see. This is going to be a negative 6. Negative 6. It's going to be a negative 12 plus 15, which is 3. Can't draw 3. Jeez. So negative 12 plus 15 is 3. And again, this is just scalar multiplication. We have to multiply it through this matrix, which would ultimately give us what? The inverse of matrix A would be the same as 1/3 times negative 6, negative 2. 1/3 times 5, 5/3. 1/3 times a negative 3, negative 1. 1/3 times 2, 2/3. All right, so now that we have the inverse of matrix A, we're going to rewrite this over here. So, we know x equals the inverse of matrix A times B. All right, so x equals what we just came up with, -2, 5/3, -1, 2/3. Matrix B is right here. That's 15 and 36. So if you were to multiply these two matrices together, what would you get? Here is what you would get. -2 times 15. Leave a little bit of room. And then 5/3 times 36. Moving on to the second row here. -1 times 15. Leave a little bit of space. And then 2/3 times 36. And that would give us what? This would be plus, by the way. We left room for the plus, okay? So, anywho, this would be what? -30 plus, -30 plus 60, I believe, right? Which will give us 30. All right. Down here, we'd get what? -15, plus what? That's 24, I think. So -15 plus 24, is 9. All right, so we've done it. We've come up with our matrix X. What does this really tell us then? This tells us that X equals 30 and Y equals 9. All right? Again, matrix X really meant XY. So that's why we're getting these two results. Okay? We are now finished with chapter number 5. Only one more chapter to go, chapter 6. We'll look at that. We'll look at that next week. Very exciting. Hope you guys are doing well. Take care. Bye-bye now.